Kazim, thank you for your questions. I have to confess that I'm not a specialist in Nigerian agriculture or indeed in Nigeria. The nearest I got to visiting Nigeria was Lagos Airport on one better forgotten occasion long ago. But if you put your question in a wider context, I think that the governments around Africa have found it really hard to get agriculture right. Some of them have actually just not thought that it was important anyway, that they could import food and that, that it wasn't a necessary thing. There would be other methods of finding employment. But other times they've had the view that everything had to go through governments. And very often that's not true. And agriculture is often makes progress on its own by one farmer copying another, by one idea spreading around and people developing something. So for example, the use of oxen as a method of pulling plows and carts has spread very rapidly in East Africa, but not because of the government. It's spread because it's a sensible thing to do. Now that same point has implications for extension in that the extension service can often simply reflect government, and often it has a situation where the extension workers themselves are not sufficiently involved in farming. They're not really able to innovate beyond a small number, or to recommend innovation beyond a small number of things that they learned in college or they've learned at courses subsequently. So if something else crops up, a new way of doing something or a way of minimizing risk, something like that, that farmers have developed on their own, the Extension Service may or may not pick it up. So I am not personally a great fan of extension, especially not of generalist extension. And in your third question, having said that, I have no doubt that there are innovations which at all different levels in terms of technology development that can improve the productivity of agriculture. And many of them are very simple things that involve dealing with soil fertility, dealing with pests, minimizing risks of various sorts. We have written this book. I think the only trouble with the book, Increasing Production from the Land, is that its publisher is in Tanzania. It's called Mkuki na Nyota. If you look on the slides, you'll see that. Or you can get it from African Book Collective, which is in England. But how you get it to Nigeria, I am not absolutely sure. So if you have any suggestions as to how we could get a copy to you, then let me know, or you may be able to solve it yourself if you'd like one. Right, so turning to Wellington Osawe, also from Nigeria, and you want to know how we can encourage more young entrepreneurs to grow businesses in agriculture and how this can help inform government policies for a sustainable economy. Well, what do you need for agriculture? You need, above all, land. So the first thing will be, what is the land position in the part of Nigeria that you're talking about? And can people who want to develop agriculture get hold of land? Is that land of reasonable quality? And can they get water? Or some water? Can they? Do they know what are the best crops and the best potential of that particular land, which may or may not be what has been done for years and years in the past. Now, if you can't get land, you don't really get off the ground. If you can get land, there's still many steps towards making the best use of it. Really what you need to do is to experiment, and you can do some very simple trials. You can put fertilizer on one small patch of land and no fertilizer on another, and see what difference it makes. And so I would say that young entrepreneurs need to have the confidence to experiment. Then the other thing, having got the production, they then need markets. And I said in the talk that often markets are more important, more difficult than production. So it's no good growing something if you don't know who's going to buy it from you and who's going to use it. So is it going to be somewhere in a big city, or is it going to be exported? Is it going to be sold to other people in the area where it's grown? Where is it going, and how is it going to get there? And it may even be that the young people have to be, or you as a young entrepreneur have to be involved in the marketing process itself to make it work. And again, that may or may not need to involve extension, but on balance, I think very often not. Now, you've talked about the devastating challenge of climate change. You don't explain exactly what that challenge is. Is it too much rain or too little rain, rain at the wrong time, no rain at all? All the answers to what you do will depend on all of these things. But what we do know is that the climate is going to get hotter, which will actually reduce yields, if anything. But it may also get wetter, or rains may come at different times of year, which could actually be helpful. I don't think you or I are going to stop the spread of the Sahara Desert just by talking about it. These are things very deeply embedded in what's happening to the planet. If the Nigerian government is going to find a way to challenge that as a mitigation measure, in other words, or an adaptation measure, it should challenge it as a response to what's actually happening. It's going to involve a lot of money, so it may not actually happen. So all I would say really to you is that in making your business plan as an entrepreneur, remember that climate change is a reality and that you need to be aware that things may get worse.